Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've tackled some pretty heavy topics: quantum computing, huge historical battles, massive economic shifts. But today, well, we're diving into something that seems almost deceptively simple, yet it arguably holds just immense power for human transformation. We're talking about the sincere complement. As we went through the research stack for this one, this really clear paradox jumped out. Look, every single human being, we all desperately crave recognition, like a fundamental psychological need, right? Yet, for something we all want so badly, people seem, well, incredibly stingy with praise. It's like they hoard positive affirmation, like there's only so much to go around on the planet.
It really forces you to ask that key question. Why do we forget this simple, potentially life-altering power? And the tension, it's all internal. You really have to consider, okay, what internal space gets nourished when you choose judgment or criticism versus when you choose genuine, sincere praise? When we judge, well, often we're feeding a sense of maybe intellectual superiority, something like that. But when we genuinely praise, what blossoms then is generosity, connection, light, really. Which brings us to this maybe slightly provocative question for you to think about. Is the difficulty we have in offering genuine encouragement perhaps rooted in our own deep, constant craving to receive recognition? If we spend all our energy just waiting for someone else to validate us, we kind of forget that to truly welcome and receive that, let's call it psychological light, we first have to know how to shine it on others.
Okay, let's unpack that, because you're right. It sounds simple, but it's clearly complex. Let's get into some real-world evidence. The material we look at has these stunning examples of how just a single moment of recognition can literally change someone's destiny. And these aren't just, feel-good anecdotes. They're documented turning points in people's lives. Take Enrico Caruso. We know him as this giant of opera, one of the definitive tenors ever. But the sources, they remind us of his early struggles. When he was young, just auditioning, his own voice teacher gave him this truly crushing judgment, said his voice was, and this is a quote, "no different from the croaking of a frog."
Wow. Just imagine hearing that, especially that specific image, croaking of a frog, from someone who's supposed to be an authority figure. I mean, that could easily be the end of the line for almost anyone, couldn't it? But the key detail here, the crucial part, is that he didn't quit. And the sources directly attribute his perseverance to his mother. Had it not been for her unwavering belief, her daily encouragement delivered consistently, probably to counteract that really powerful professional critique, the world would have lost one of its greatest voices. Forever.
So the recognition, her belief, it kept his confidence alive just long enough for the skill to catch up and mature.
Exactly. It bridged the gap.
And we see similar patterns in other fields too, right? Like, look at Charles Dickens, a literary titan.
Yeah.
But his early career, defined by rejection, just over and over and over again. I mean, any aspiring writer listening probably knows that feeling all too well.
That constant.
Yeah. But the real catalyst for him, the moment that really opened the door for this incredible genius, it wasn't some huge book deal years down the line or winning a big award. It was a single, tiny, validating moment. A newspaper paid him 1 silver coin for his first published article.
1 silver coin.
Yeah. The money itself was practically meaningless, right? But the acknowledgement that someone saw value in his work and actually paid for it, even a tiny amount, that was the validation he needed to keep going.
That's fascinating because it really highlights something important. A well-timed compliment or acknowledgement, it doesn't create the skill out of thin air. What it does is it awakens that dormant self-confidence. It confirms for the person, hey, your effort here actually matters. Someone sees it.
Right.
So when we acknowledge the effort or even just the potential we see, we provide that vital psychological push. The push needed to overcome the fear of rejection or that inevitable self-doubt that creeps in after failure.
Okay, so we got these powerful stories. Now, connecting this sort of anecdotal proof to the bigger picture, we need to shift into this psychological mechanism, right? What is actually happening inside the mind when we receive genuine, sincere praise?
Yeah, let's look at the mechanics, and we can turn directly to behavioral psychology here, specifically the foundational work pioneered by B.F. Skinner. His research pretty conclusively proves that praise acts as a really powerful form of positive reinforcement. Put simply, what you water grows. When you acknowledge good behavior, maybe it's a brilliant idea someone shared in a meeting, or just a simple kindness you saw someone show a stranger, you are literally strengthening the neural pathways that encourage that specific behavior to be repeated.
Okay, that sounds absolutely crucial for development, for learning, for growth. But let me just push back on that for a second.
Yeah.
If praise is the answer, where does constructive criticism fit in? I mean, we can't just live in a bubble of everything's great, right? Sometimes people genuinely need clear, maybe even negative feedback to correct their course.
That is a really crucial distinction, and you're right to bring it up. The sources are very clear on this. We must separate judgment from useful feedback. Criticism, especially if it targets the person themselves, their identity, rather than a specific behavior or performance, well, that rarely inspires true, sustainable improvement. Instead, what it often teaches people is just to be afraid. They learn to hide their attempts, or they withdraw, or they simply stop trying altogether just to avoid that negative psychological hit.
So it shuts them down.
Exactly. Whereas constructive critique, delivered effectively, it needs to be framed as supportive data, aimed toward a specific shared goal. And crucially, it usually needs to be delivered within a pre-existing container of trust and recognition. Basically, if you haven't built up any positive regard, if you haven't praised them first or shown you see their value, they probably can't really hear the critique constructively.
Ah, okay. That makes perfect sense. The environment of trust has to be there first, like a foundation.
And this brings us neatly to another really important definitional point that the sources kept emphasizing. Sincere praise is absolutely, categorically not the same as flattery.
Not at all.
Flattery feels transactional, doesn't it? It's often manipulative, you're trying to get something back, and honestly, the person receiving it can usually sense its hollowness, it feels a bit slimy.
Right, it lacks authenticity.
Exactly. But the sources define genuine praise far more profoundly. They describe it as seeing the true value of others. And not just seeing it, but providing the light necessary to help them illuminate the bright part of themselves. So it's an act of truth, of careful observation, not manipulation.
Precisely. And this is why that analogy of light and energy works so well, and the authors use it quite a bit. Think of praise as a form of psychological light. When you praise someone sincerely, yes, you are absolutely granting them energy, visibility, encouragement. But you're also simultaneously participating in what the sources call the law of energy resonance. The law of energy resonance.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
It means the exchange is reciprocal. The wise, the sources suggest, understand this. The more you encourage and genuinely affirm the good you see in others, the more you yourself grow. Your own ability to perceive the good sharpens. Your worldview can fundamentally shift, moving away from a default of scarcity or criticism towards one of abundance and appreciation. You are, in a very real sense, lighting up your own soul as you light up others.
Wow.
So giving praise isn't purely a selfless act. It's actually highly beneficial to the giver because it forces your conscious attention onto positivity, onto what's working, onto potential.
All right, this is where it gets really practical, I think, for us as adults trying to navigate, let's face it, pretty competitive and busy environments day to day. We spend so much energy looking for that external validation, from our boss, our partner, our colleagues, whoever. But the final realization from all this research seems to suggest we should actually pivot. We should shift from seeking praise to becoming the source of it.
That's the core shift.
And the observation driving that shift is pretty stark when you read it. The world does not lack talented people. It doesn't lack hardworking people or smart people. What the world fundamentally lacks, the sources argue, are people who know how to actively nurture the good things in others.
And that scarcity, well, it creates a huge opportunity, doesn't it? We often miss the countless small daily chances we have to act as nurturers. And that brings us to that beautiful metaphor of the seed that the sources use.
Oh yeah, the seed.
Every compliment, provided it's given sincerely, is like planting a seed. It might seem small, maybe insignificant in the moment, but if you sow that seed with truth and you nurture it with sincerity, it will blossom, not just in the other person's life, but it blossoms into what the research calls a garden of trust between you.
A garden of trust. I like that.
And that garden of trust, well, that's the fertile ground where true collaboration and deep, meaningful relationships can actually thrive. Think about it. When people trust that you genuinely see their value, their effort, their character, their potential, they become so much more open. Open to collaboration, open to receiving feedback, open to mutual growth. It's really the foundation for successful teams, strong families, healthy communities.
This really shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? Away from zero-sum competition and towards, well, mutual enlightenment, as the sources put it. So if our job then as individuals is to become the one who encourages, how do we actually do that today? Especially, say, in a competitive workplace. It often feels counterintuitive, maybe even risky, to lift up someone who might be seen as a rival.
That tension is absolutely real. I won't downplay that. But the culminating wisdom here, particularly for us as adults, is precisely this. Stop waiting to be acknowledged yourself. Strive instead, actively, to become the one who encourages, even when it feels difficult, even when it feels counterintuitive. Because, and this is the key insight, when you dedicate yourself to the practice of seeing and encouraging the good in others, that internal practice itself becomes a form of self-enlightenment. It's a discipline. It expands your own capacity for positivity, for insight, for generosity, regardless of what the other person does or doesn't do with your compliment.
So, okay, wrapping this all up. What does this mean for you listening right now? It means that the true power of the compliment, the kind that changes things, it's only really effective when it comes from what the sources call an awakened heart. It's not some tactic you deploy strategically. It's actually a reflection of your own inner state, your own perspective. When you genuinely commit to seeing the light, the effort, the potential in the people around you, you don't just reflect that light onto them. You fundamentally become that light yourself.
Exactly. And if we bring it right down to today, the decision to give one sincere compliment, it's not really about performing for others or trying to please them. It's maybe more about performing for yourself, in a way. It's about reminding yourself that despite all the complexity, all the negativity maybe in the news cycle or daily frustrations, you still possess the ability to see the beauty and the potential in humanity. And that insight, that ability, that's what grounds you.
So here's the challenge, the mission for you, the listener, based on this deep dive. Try one small thing today, just one. Give one sincere, specific compliment to someone. Don't overthink it. Don't make it a grand gesture. Just acknowledge something true and good that you observe in someone else. You might, without ever knowing it, be the person who opens the door to another life.